Hello, it's about 5 o'clock on Friday the 12th of December. I got home from work not that long ago and am in such a reading mood, so I thought I would bring you guys along with me to see what I'm reading this weekend. Our main focus is The Dawn Hounds by Sasha Stronach. I think that's how you say that. This is a book off my Read the World challenge, which is, if you haven't heard me say before, it's a challenge that was created by my friend Tracy where you have to read 2 books from every continent to diversify your reading. I'm having trouble speaking and I barely even touched my glass of wine and I'm already stumbling over my words. Yes, so this is off that challenge. I still have like 4 or 5 books left to read this year off that challenge, but I am determined to get it finished. So this is going to be my focus this weekend. This is Maori-inspired fantasy and it's also very queer, I hear. So this is a book about a thief turned cop who is murdered, brought back to life with a mysterious new power and tasked with protecting her city from a devastating attack. The port city of Hanak is alive, its buildings, its fashion, even its weapons. After a devastating war and a biotech revolution, all its inhabitants want is peace. No one more so than Constable Jin Yat Hok. Recently demoted on the force due to lifestyle choices after being caught at a gay club, Yat is barely holding it together, haunted by memories of a lover who vanished and voices that float in and out of her head like radio signals. When she stumbles across a dead body on night patrol, 2 fellow officers gruesomely murder her and dump her in the harbour. Unfortunately for them, she wakes up. Resurrected by an ancient power, she finds herself with the ability to manipulate life force. Quickly falling in with the pirate crew who has found her, she must race against time to stop a plague from being unleashed by an evil that has taken deep root in Hanak. I've said before that I'm a little intimidated by this book. It sounds like there's a lot of different aspects and elements going on, but it also sounds really, really fun and fast-paced. I feel like this will be a good time. It's not very long. It's only like 330 pages, so I feel like it will be super fast-paced. And I'm looking forward to it. It sounds like a good, fun, queer time. So yes, this is the book that I'm going to be focusing on this weekend, and I hope you guys enjoy this video of me reading this book and hopefully not procrastinating all weekend and actually getting some reading done. It is Saturday, it's about 11 AM in the morning and it's time for our first Dawn Hound update. I really liked the first chapter. I feel like that was a really strong open to the book. The first chapter we follow this crew on this boat that have been through obviously a really traumatic time. Basically the crew was tasked with going out to find this bio weapon from what I can gather. Basically in this world, like I said, when I read you the blurb, is like everything's kind of made from like plant life now. Things used to be all kind of made out of steel in this city until there was a war. I don't know. I am having trouble following the story at some parts, but from what I can kind of gather, there was a war and it kind of caused a technological revolution, I guess. And now everything's kind of made out of, yeah, like plant life and fungus and stuff. And it's a really cool it's not really a magic system. It's a really cool plot point of like this technology is basically all plant life. Yeah, so I'm really flipping back and forth in this update, but yeah, let's go back to the first chapter. So the crew are tasked with finding this like bioweapon, this plant life that can be turned into a weapon basically. And I think it goes tremendously wrong, as most of these plots normally do, when people say, hey, go find this thing, we're going to turn it into a weapon. Yeah, and they start to touch samples of things they don't quite understand. I think a sample gets loose and infects the crew. we don't really know what's happened to the crew. They're locked, part of the crew, they're kind of locked away, but the surviving members of the crew kind of describe them as, yeah, infected with something. So we follow this crew trying to get back home. They've run out of food, they've run out of water. The mission has gone quite horribly wrong. And yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So that was the opening chapter of the book. So I think that opening chapter is describing the plague that's described in the blurb. I think maybe it's them bringing the plague to the city. I could be really off. Like I said, there are some parts in this book where I'm a little bit confused. But yeah, I think that's the plague element coming to their city. So I feel like it was a really strong opening to the book. It was quite scary and fun. I liked that. So yeah, like I said, all the technology is kind of like plant life and fungus and vines and all this cool stuff. And in the city you can still see the remnants of steel, but that's kind of, they've tried to cover that up with plant life. And following typical humans, this technological advancement is only benefiting some, basically only benefiting the rich. So if you're rich, you can have easy access to all these amazing technological advances. Like, they've described it as being used for like limb replacement and all these cool, magical, wonderful things. But if you're below middle class, you've got no chance of getting these technological advancements, or if you do, they're done really shoddily by like illegal, you know, black market kind of things that typically goes wrong very quickly, done by dodgy doctors and dodgy locations. So yeah, we've already got like a little bit of discussion of like class within this book. So we've met our main character Yat. She's still alive at this point. The blurb does say she gets killed. I'm at 65 pages and she still is alive at this point. I believe she's witnessed the first chapter. It's described later on she witnesses guns in the water, which I think is a reference to our first chapter, but nothing comes of that so far. And now she's currently aboard this pirate ship, which I think is maybe going to be the pirate crew that she falls in with after she's killed. And they're this kind of infamous pirate crew, a mix of, you know, weird and wonderful people. Yeah, so far I'm really enjoying the writing. Like I said, there are some points where I'm a little bit confused. They keep making reference to like the war, and those references confuse me a little bit. From what I can tell, there was a big war, caused the revolution of like fungi and plant life technology, but the war hasn't actually technically ended. The people they were fighting against have just kind of vanished, so I'm assuming we might see them pop back up at some point. And then there was something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, there's also this cultish kind of element which I'm liking. They describe the members as like wearing bird masks, which I don't quite know why yet, but they seem to hold quite a bit of power, so there's a little bit of politics as well. There's so many different groups in this book that I am kind of having trouble keeping them straight in my mind. But I don't know if they're going to play a big part. They have been mentioned a lot, and there's this cultish group that kind of worship this god, and they have quite a big majority in the parliament. So yeah, there's like, I thought the blurb kind of warned me, there is so much going on in this book, a lot of different elements, and I'm only, what did I say, 65 pages in? Yeah, 65 pages, and there's already so much going on. It is a very short book as well, so I did ask for fast pace, so that is definitely what I'm getting. So yeah, one other warning is there is use of gay slurs in this book. Do I think it was necessary? Absolutely not. You could have implied that this person was homophobic without using that word. So yeah, that was... yeah, I just wasn't expecting that. So trigger warnings, there are some like gay slurs being used in this book. Yeah, like I said, so far I'm really intrigued. I'm quite liking it. I'm finding myself wanting to pick it up, which is good. I'm hoping as the plot starts to really kick in that I'm going to be able to make sense of all these different elements that are going on, especially the different like political groups and religious groups in this book and the war, and it's all a bit confusing. So hopefully once the plot kicks in, and I get a little bit more context, we'll start to see why all of these groups needed to be introduced and the part they're going to play in this plague and pirate crew and murder, and yeah, so hopefully it all will start to make like a little bit more sense. So now I'm gonna go finish getting ready, have some lunch, and then I have to go to work. I'm so not in the mood, genuinely so not in the mood to work today. It's my last Saturday of the year though, which is good. If you don't know, I do every second Saturday, which is, yeah, it's not too bad. I shouldn't complain, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting my last weekend shift of the year done. It's only 3.5 hours, so I shouldn't complain, but I like to complain. So yeah, I'm going to work and then I'll finish at 4. And then my plan for tonight is to obviously read some more of this. I didn't read as much as I kind of wanted to last night. I started out well, I sat down, opened my book, and then I was so tired that I couldn't keep my eyes open, and I fell asleep quite early. So, I mean, I feel pretty well rested, so that's good. But yeah, tonight hopefully make a little bit more progress than I did last night, and then tomorrow I should make a shit ton more progress because it'll be my first proper actual day off for the weekend. Hello, it is now 3:45 on Sunday. I know I haven't updated, but I've been so lazy today. It's been so nice. I've been just absolutely having a rotting Sunday. So I haven't been asked to film, but now that I've relaxed a little bit, done a little bit of what I wanted to do, I suddenly had the urge to continue on with this vlog. I didn't want to scrap it. So let's update my reading progress on the Dawn Hounds. I think I last updated you before I started work and I was only like 50 pages in. I'm now like 226 pages into this book, so I've made a lot of progress since I've last spoken to you guys about this book. Okay, so one thing I did forget to say about this book that I enjoyed, and I probably should have said it in my first update because it would have made more sense to say it then, but I'm going to say it now. So I think I told you this is by a Kiwi author, so a New Zealand author, and I was reading a review, like a blog post review about this book, and they were talking about how the author fought so hard to get Kiwi slang in this book, and I think it was just a really interesting discussion because the author got a lot of pushback from the publisher. Actually, who published this? That'll be quite interesting. Saga Press published this. So Saga Press pushed back a lot on using the Kiwi slang in this book because they said you got to think about your American audience and you've got to cater to them and they're not going to get it. And the author was saying, well, they're not stupid, like you can put the words into context, they're not going to be able to understand what's going on. So I just thought that was really interesting that that the publishing company were just purely thinking about the Americans, and I bet that does happen a lot with books. I don't really know much about the publishing industry, but I can imagine that kind of thing happens often. So I just really liked that there was an author note at the start of this book. It says, "Dear reader, this novel may at times use New Zealand slang. This is, as I have assured my editor, intentional." And New Zealand slang is quite similar to Aussie slang. They say like yeah nah like we do, and they call birds bin chickens, which we call ibis birds as well. So it's just quite fun to see Kiwi slang in this book because, you know, there's a lot of overlap with Australian slang, so it's really cool to see like some representation in this book. And I love that the author fought so hard to get their voice and their country's voice in this book, because that's why we read diversely, is because we want to gain other people's perspectives. How boring would it be if you only read books from your own country's perspective, your own people's perspective? That would be very boring. So I love that this is on my Read the World challenge, and I love that, you know, what am I trying to say? I love that this made the way onto my list of trying to read more diversely, and the author fought so hard to get their nation's slang and feel into the book. Back to the book itself, in a less positive note. I I'm so conflicted about how I feel about this book. So conflicted. I feel like it's just absolutely all over the place. Like, I want to say like tonally, if I don't know if that's the right word, but at some points it really feels like I'm reading a completely different book depending on what chapter I'm in. It's just taken such a shift to how it started, and it just, at points, it really does feel like I'm reading a completely different book. I feel like it's very messy, and I think it's such a shame because I see bits of good writing coming through, and I see how this book has so much potential, and I could have absolutely adored this book because the kind of fungal system and the way this world is built is so fascinating to me. Like the fact that the plant life is how they power everything. The magic system is also really fascinating, and I do like the cult-like element of this book. There's like the bird cult that are this very secretive, powerful, religious kind of sect that have a watchful bird's eye, because they're birds, get it, view of everything that's happening in this city. And I think that that's all really interesting. This book just has way too much going on. Absolutely way too much going on. I feel like it's too short for the kind of expansive world it's trying to build, and the fact that it's trying to do that in only like 340 pages is just crazy, because I have no fucking clue what's going on half the time. This book is just confusing, and it's not like the start of a fantasy where you're like, what the hell is happening? And later on, as things happen, you kind of start to understand a little bit more. I guess it is happening a little bit, but there's still so much I am so incredibly confused at. This book is just throwing information at you, and it's way too late in this book to be getting more and more lore thrown at me. I want less lore, more explanation, or a longer book where I have time to get to know the lore a little bit more and where it's explained to me a little bit better. Otherwise, this book just feels like absolutely like all over the place. But yeah, I'm so annoyed because it's so cool. Like, it's such a cool, unique book, and I can't say I've read something like this before, and I really like that, how unique this book is, and I am wanting to pick it up and read it, but then every time I pick it up and read it, I go back to like, what the fuck is going on? Am I still reading the same book I was like 30 pages ago? I also feel like this book has a real big pacing issue, which is crazy because I just said it's so short. But yeah, this book, I feel like it's gonna have to be an action-packed last chunk, because not a lot has happened, to be honest, because I feel like we spend way too much time introducing new characters, new gods, new religions, new lore, that we are not leaving enough time for the plot to progress at a nice pace, rather than just like a chunk of no plot progression and then a huge plot progression at the end, which only really makes sense if like it's a thriller or something. If I want a fantasy, I want a couple of cool, interesting things happening throughout. Like, yeah, you can have your big reveal, big fight scene at the end, but give me little like moments throughout. I haven't had enough of those moments throughout to feel like the paces is working well for me. We also just like 3/4 of the way through this book suddenly have different perspectives, and it's not like we've just gotten one new perspective, we've gotten like 3 new perspectives, which I feel like is way too late in the game, because now I don't really know these characters that well, because I haven't really been given the time to get to know them or feel like a connection to them, other than one kind of. And these are characters you definitely will like I like them, but I feel like only on a surface level because I don't know them super well. If I had spent more time earlier on, or if they had perspectives all the way through this book, I definitely would have been way more connected to them and rooting for them more, because you can feel that you like them. There are likable characters, but I don't know them well enough, and I just feel like if we're going to do multiple perspectives, let's do it from the get-go, because there are so many perspectives. I do know that this is the first book in a series. This is the first book in the End Song series, so I know potentially that there's going to be more time to explore all this later on. But yeah, if we're just talking about the contained story in this book itself, I stand by stand by what I said. Maybe we'll have time to explore it more in the later books, which I honestly don't see myself picking up. I don't know. I feel like this has been a really negative review, and I'm sorry, but I think this book is cool. I just don't like how it's being done. And I'm so disappointed and so mad because I could see myself just like adoring this. I definitely will finish this tonight. Like, I really don't have that long to go, and it does read quite quickly. The text is big and there's a lot of empty pages, so I definitely will get this done tonight. I actually, at this point, no clue what I'm going to rate this book. Absolutely no clue. Normally by this point I definitely have a number in my mind that could change or go up or go down depending on how it ends, but at this point I genuinely am at a loss for what to rate this. I know I haven't finished it yet, but I have no idea how I'm going to rate this book, to be honest, so I'm going to finish this tonight. Hello me again. It's about 9:55 at night, and about half an hour ago I finished The Dawnhounds by Sasha Stronach. So I didn't like how this book ended. It continued to be an absolute mess where I don't think it was that I was too dumb to understand what was going on. I don't think that was the issue. I think this was not well explained, and it got worse as it got further and further towards the end of the book. The ending felt really rushed and too easy. I just felt like our main character, her magic just like, I don't know, she just seemed to be able to use it so easily for someone who's like, you know, didn't even realize she had magic, you know, a couple of days ago. She just seems to have this, you know, amazing ability with her magic that just seems a little bit too easy. Like, she didn't have to really work for it, and all of a sudden she's all powerful and can, you know, defeat these creatures that are basically like, you know, like thousands of years old. And I just felt that it was too easy. And again, I couldn't tell you what the fuck was going on in this book. I really couldn't. There was also a reveal that I kind of saw coming. I was like, oh, please, no. About a certain character that I felt was like too easy and too happy-go-lucky for the kind of tone of this book. It just came out of absolutely nowhere with no explanation, and I just felt like, yeah, it annoyed me. I was starting to get annoyed towards the end of this book. Again, I'm just so frustrated because I saw the potential. Like, this had all the ingredients of being a 4 or 5 star book and something that I would absolutely love. Like, person that gets dragged into this magical world where we have these like zombie-like creatures, and it kind of reminds me of The Last of Us when describing like these blooms and the kind of plant life infecting people, and it just had the potential to be this cool zombie-like story, but it was all over the place, way too many perspectives, way too ambitious, and just not well explained that a normal person would be able to follow this story. I mean, I kind of was tipped off by the blurb. There was too much going on. I read the blurb a couple of times in TBR videos and was like, that's a lot going on, and that was absolutely evident in this book that it was just too much going on in one story, and the tonal changes were so weird, the magic system was so cool and unique and just not well explained. And there was just elements that were mentioned in this book that didn't end up having that big of a part to play in the reveal and the plot. And when I read the reveal and the plot, I was like, why are we introducing all these extra complex things when they're not really that necessarily important at the end of the story, so it was just even more frustrating. I definitely have no intention of continuing on with this series. I'm happy to leave it where I left it. It was very open ending, so yeah, definitely setting up for a sequel. And like I said, it says at the start that it's book 1 of a series, but I have, yeah, absolutely no interest in continuing on. I think because I saw potential, and because I don't think the writing itself was bad, just the explanations were bad, I think currently I'm going to rate this 3.5 stars. It wasn't horrible, but it just, yeah, it was a confusing tonal mess where the tone was just all over the place, the plot was all over the place. It was a mess, but 4 stars, way too high, it was too messy. 3 stars feels a little bit too low, so I think 3.5 is where I'm happy to leave it. I don't think this was a bad book. I think it was a cool idea, just poor execution. Hello, it's actually Tuesday night now. I never updated you last night. I ended up having a really busy day, and then we went to Christmas lights with my nephew and my family last night. So by the time we got home from that, it was time to get into bed. So I was absolutely kidding myself when I thought I could read a whole book yesterday. So instead, I ended up reading a manga across the day, and that was Bungo Stray Dogs. This is volume 1. This was written by Kafta Asagiri. This follows a young guy who is basically kicked out of an orphanage, and then he interrupts this guy trying to commit suicide and helps him, saves him and stops him from committing suicide. And then the guy that was trying to commit suicide actually belongs to this like special detective agency where they all have like supernatural kind of powers. And he asks the main character for help in catching this tiger that has been terrorizing the area. So that's basically the plot of this first one. It was really fun. The humor was hilarious. It was really, really funny. There is one thing that they use as a comedic bit in this book that is a little bit uncomfy. I don't know. I feel like some people wouldn't quite appreciate that being used as a point of humor and being like joked about. I won't say because like triggers and spoilers, but yeah, that was a bit like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. The only other bad thing about this was, I don't know why this is such a common occurrence in manga, but it really is. 2 of the characters are twins, girl and a boy twin, and they're basically a couple. Like it's clear that they're a couple. She's got her hand like resting on his stomach, and yeah, they're a couple. I don't know why it occurs so often in manga. It is incredibly uncomfortable, but there hasn't been too much of it that it's like a complete put off that I can't read this. But yeah, it's uncomfy for sure, but the humor in this is so funny. We've got like these 2 characters that are in the detective agency that have a very funny relationship, like slap each other, like slap on the back of the head kind of humor. So their dynamic is really funny. And our main character, we don't know heaps about yet, but he seems like a really nice guy. And I like his morals so far. And yeah, the humor is definitely the highlight of this book. But then the plot also starts to get really interesting. The start is kind of slapstick comedy, them getting to know each other, and then we kind of get introduced to what I'm assuming, I don't know if he's a big bad through the whole series or just the start. We kind of get introduced to the big bad, and we have this cool fight scene. Yeah, so all of the members of this detective agency have like supernatural powers, and they're really cool. They're all like literary like themed. So one of the characters is like, he's like a poet is kind of his power. So through speaking he creates like different things out of nothing. So he said some like poetry and then created a gun. So they all seem to have these really cool, interesting powers, very unique, which makes for some interesting battles. Yeah, so I really, really enjoyed this. I don't know if I'll continue to buy it. I'm always so reluctant to buy manga series just because they're so long, and I feel like your enjoyment really goes up and down with them. So I don't know if I'll buy them or I'll just borrow the rest from the library. We'll see, but I'll be definitely continuing on with this series. So that was my weekend reading vlog. I managed to read The Dawn Hounds, gave that 3.5, and Bungo Stray Dogs, and gave that 4 stars. So I'll take that as quite a productive reading weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did, and subscribe if you would like to see more of my content, and I will see you in whatever the hell I post next. Bye!